Ian Sharman, 10 times Western States 100 miler finisher and multiple Leadville winner as well. So Ian, you are here in Chamonix for UTMB, but injury has stopped you from running the race. So what has gone on for you injury-wise?
Well, unfortunately, Western States was 2 months ago, and I didn't realise at the time, but I think I damaged my Achilles. So as soon as I started running afterwards, I had Achilles tendonitis. So I started training harder for this. Then I couldn't train anymore, and I've now tried to shut it down and just deal with the injury. So everything was paid for to come out here. So I've got a nice holiday, and I'm going to be in Switzerland and then Spain after this. So it's a lot of fun. I mean, it's such an amazing event to be at. We can hear the finishers coming in. All of this is just, it gets me so excited. But there's definitely some FOMO. I would love to be racing it. And it's difficult to watch all my friends race and me just going, yeah, I wish I had achy legs right now, and I don't.
I know, it must be so hard. Like, how do you make that call? Like, how do you know if your injury is bad enough not to race or not? How do you decide?
This one was fairly clear cut. It's always when it's more marginal that it's difficult. So that's, at first it felt more marginal, and I was able to run on it. I live near mountains in Oregon, and I was going up and down those like 5,000 foot climbs, and that actually made it feel a little bit better. So I thought, great, okay, well I can do UTMB stuff. And then it got a little bit worse, and I realized that the training would make it worse, and I couldn't continue. So it's just really at the pain level. You know, once you're running through pain, that's a bad idea. I think a lot of runners get confused about the difference between pain and suffering. And running through suffering, yeah, that's what Ultra's about. Running through injury pain, unless you're right at the end of the race, and ideally it's not too severe, like you haven't got a bone sticking out or something, that's the stuff that you don't want to be doing. So it was fairly obvious for me that the soreness and the pain, I was only going to make that worse by training. And if I couldn't train hard enough, there wasn't much point even getting to the start line if I'm out of shape and then it hurts at mile one.
And so how do you tell between pain and suffering then?
I think it's fairly obvious a lot of the time. In a race it can be more difficult because things hurt, but if you're just walking around and something hurts, that's quite clearly an injury as opposed to just the suffering of hard exercise.
And how hard is it to make that call in the middle of the race? Say you've gone halfway along a 100 miler or a 50 miler, how would you know, yeah, I can't run through this anymore? Like, when is it just bravado and when is it?
It's really difficult. I mean, there's no one rule that you would use. It depends on how deep you are into the race, how bad it is. A lot of it comes down to setting up your red lines in advance of what is an acceptable level of pain, what is an okay injury, like are you okay not running for a month afterwards, are you going to be in hospital afterwards, and you don't necessarily know because you're not a doctor. Well, most people aren't doctors as they're running, but even if they are, they can't examine themselves properly mid-race. So it's usually a judgment call. With this, like at Western States, obviously I was suffering at the end like normal, but I didn't really feel this. I just had aches and pains. I don't think it made it worse by finishing it, but here it clearly would have been. So I've only had a couple of times where I've had to stop due to an injury, and usually it's fairly clear cut of, okay, this is just stupid to keep going. Also, if you're more competitive in the race, if you can tell that the injury is also going to mean that you have a bad finish, that takes away some of the point of doing it. If it's just suffering that means you have a bad finish, though, I'd always recommend going through that because you learn so much about it. But if you're going to have a bad day, be out there way longer and really damage yourself, that's when I'd say that it's better to save yourself for another day. But again, it's a fine line between are you wimping out or are you just being stupid? And it's difficult to tell. So experience helps a lot. And having a coach. Plug for me.
Excellent, that is really, really good advice. Thank you for that. And I did have an audience member question actually about how do you cope with the psychological impact of injury? Because obviously you're out of course, there's FOMO. How do you cope with it psychologically?
I think I've tried to just get more into the idea that I'm here to enjoy these. I mean, when I first started running, I wasn't expecting to make a living out of it. I just did the Marathon des Sables in 2006, and the aim was just to finish stuff. So I try and remind myself why I do this in the first place. And yes, as you get better and you have sponsors and things like that, there's more pressure. But ultimately, there's no point doing things if there's not an overall enjoyment from it. So when I come here and I see lots of friends, like walking around Chamonix is insane. It's like walking around Squaw Valley before Western States, where I walk 10 feet and bump into another friend. Whether it's American, Brit, people I coach. I actually was just at the start line of the race, trying to find a good place along the course to look, and I tapped someone on the shoulder and said, do they go past here? And it's someone I coach, who I've not met in person. So I've videoed him loads of times. He lives in Norway, and he just turns around and goes, oh, that's so cool, what a random thing, but that's so fun. So I try and enjoy that side of it. And ultimately, I think that's the whole point of this type of thing. Unlike, I think, some sports, and particularly more the road side of things compared to trail, this is about enjoying nature, and just because I can't run it, I can still enjoy watching other people do it. I can enjoy being in Chamonix. I mean, how can you not enjoy being in Chamonix?
And do you do any sort of cross-training or anything whilst you're injured?
Yeah, so it depends on what the injury is. So in this case, I can cycle, and that's fine. So just before I left for this race, I was doing quite a lot of cycling. I only had a couple of weeks of switching to that, so just getting used to it and stopping having the sore bum that you get from being on the saddle. So actually, I'm a bit annoyed that I can't do that here as easily, or there's a gym in the hotel and it has a bike, but I'm not going to sit on a bike looking out the window at this when I could do something outside at least. So yeah, cycling sometimes, and mountain biking, and I live in Bend, which has amazing trails for both. I do a little bit of gym work as well, so strength work, so I can still do that. And walking and hiking, although with this injury, anything uphill isn't a good idea, so that kind of takes a lot of the hiking away, because that's mainly going to be on hills.
Yeah, so a little bit frustrating, but depending on the injury.
Exactly. It's really, when you're injured, it's what will help you heal the injury quickest. Usually movement is good as part of that, but it's good to get a physical therapist's advice and make sure that you're doing things that aren't just the most training you can do without breaking yourself, but instead things that speed the healing. So the cycling does, it gets the ankle moving, helps with the blood flow, but doesn't cause any strain on it. And also there are PT exercises I'm doing. So the typical one for Achilles tendonitis is eccentric drops on stairs. So I've been doing that morning and evening, which hopefully will pay off soon.
And you've actually been doing those exercises?
Yeah, I'm not very good in general, but I'm quite frustrated with it right now. So morning and evening, I'm making sure that I do it because I just want to be able to keep running while I'm here. So I can actually do a little bit of running because it's okay to train through this as long as it's flat and slow. But if I can improve this and I can see each run's feeling a bit better, that's also really motivating.
Fantastic. And I was going to ask you actually, what is the best way to recover faster, which you've kind of covered, but is there anything
in general,
else
movement is usually better than just doing nothing, but it's making sure you have an expert telling you what types of movement, because otherwise the tendency with most runners is you'll just do the most you can before it really gets bad, and that usually slows the healing. So I would love to be hiking up these mountains, but I know that'll be worse for me, so I'm avoiding that. Although I did hike down. So I went up with my wife this morning, we went up the cable cars and then hiked the way down, because downhill is fine for this type of injury.
Ah, clever. So see a professional definitely would be your advice.
Exactly, yeah. Don't just use online stuff to diagnose it, because you usually get it wrong.
Yeah, I see so many runners in like Facebook groups saying, I've got this is wrong with me. And
this is what I did and it'll work for you. It's like, no, you need someone to see you in person.
Yeah, that's great advice. I'm glad you said that. And so now a little bit just about how to come back without getting re-injured. Like how slowly do you really have to do it?
Again, depends on how long you've had off, what you've been able to do during it. So I'm hoping that cycling can keep my general aerobic fitness up, but then there'll be the impact forces that'll be a bit harder. And also if I can do some slow running, it'll be a very easy transition, because I'll keep my general fitness and I'll keep the muscles and the ligaments and the tendons and the bones being able to withstand more. So I'd hope that as soon as it goes away, I could train reasonably hard, but you never go from like virtually nothing to hard. But hopefully it can be a quicker transition this time, because I want to do more stuff this year. I've got some goals towards the end of the year that will depend on how quickly this heals.
Oh, cool. What are your goals for the end of the year?
I'd like to run a sub 12 hour 100 mile. So there's one in Florida that is a point-to-point road race. I've kind of done enough of looped courses that I don't want to just do that. And like one of my coaches, Zach Bitter, just got the world record on an indoor track loop. I don't really want to do 11 to 12 hours of loops around a track. So I like the idea this is point to point on a road. It's called the Daytona 100 miler. And I know the race director is a friend of mine from a while ago. So it'd be an excuse to go to Florida, which is a place I've never been to before and that has a weird reputation. So I kind of like to see what it's like.
Awesome. Oh, well, I hope your injury clears.
So do I. Yeah, I've got 3 months, so we'll see.
Fantastic. Well, that has been absolutely amazing advice, Ian.
Thanks.
Now that you're a super good coach. Is there anything else you would like to say on behalf of Sharman Ultra Endurance Coaching?
Yeah, well, I mean, we're taking people on at the moment. We have an awesome team of superstar athletes and coaches. So people like Ellie, Greenwood, Zach Bitter, who just set the world record for 100 miles. They're all such knowledgeable people. We all have a slightly different skill set, so it allows us to kind of learn from each other and learn from the people that we coach as well.
Fantastic. Well, what's the website address?
SharmanUltra.com. So my last name, ultra.com, which in America has more of a comedy meaning, because Sharman Ultra is a toilet paper, so they kind of pronounce it Sharman. So Sharman Ultra, to most people in America, they think, toilet paper. But at least they remember.
Did you know that?
I did that on purpose, yeah.
That's really funny. Well, thank you so much for talking to us here at the UTMB. Ian.
Thank you. No, it's great talking to you.
Absolutely lovely to meet you, and best of luck for next year's race.
Thanks, Claire.